Yeah, and again, this was 2014, so a few years back, and I would say you've had since then a bunch of really inspiring projects, both with GLAM institutions and Wikipedia assignments, Wiki Commons assignments. What is the point in time where you make the switch and towards doing assignments with Wikidata or kind of experimenting it within the classroom?
Okay, so I
What
think
prompted you to even start? And yeah.
okay, so I think now it's a good time. No, I think Shani need to share my screen. I think then I can actually provide a more structured answer. Thanks. So just again, this is again my name, and you can also find me on my username. And this below the title and the name are all the hats that I wear, and they all lead me to the Wikimedia projects. And to answer your question, let me say that just like my students at the beginning, I was skeptical about Wikidata. So Wikidata has been um, around for several years, but I actually just got involved in 2018, so only 2 years ago. And before I was, okay, so I don't really understand the purpose of it. And then talking with someone who is actually an Israeli, is uh, part of the Wikimedia Foundation, which is the foundation that organizes uh, the structure and the infrastructure for the Wikimedia project. His name is Azav Bartov. And when we were talking, and I knew him back then in 2014, it's actually one of the first persons that I've met in the international Wikimedia movement, because I came to Brazil in 2014. Then I sort of understood it, and it was a revelation. And I said, how didn't I see it before? And I'm sorry if you're listening to my children screaming around. I don't know what's going on. So as you know, we're all in quarantine, so I'm not at my office at home, so I'm sorry. So, and I understood that Wikidata was the solution, which is kind of a evangelical thing to say, but to some extent, if the solution is Wikidata, and if the course, and I completely agree with the approach, is we are moving to something different, we actually need to make new questions. And I just lost my presentation, so just give me a minute. I have no idea where it went. Okay. And I always start my education programs that relate to Wikidata with a really deep thinking about the need that Wikidata can actually solve. And as I'll try to convey in this presentation, Wikidata can actually change not only the transformation of the word, but the pace and the shape of this transformation. So, and this pace and this shape are actually way more creative and engaging, at least for me and for students. And I will show you the impact of some work that we've been doing than what a Wikipedia assignment alone was. Of course, Wikipedia is amazing. It's magic. And when you do your first edit, you become a different person because you actually see you changing how people have access to information and to knowledge. But Wikidata can make this, again, faster, more intense, and provide answers you couldn't get just by collecting reference. So it creates a different object, a media object. So as I said, it starts with a meaningful design. For Wikipedia, this was always, for me, a given, because we knew from scratch that education programs are and were life and society changing, and resources and practice communities engaged with the idea that Wikipedia belonged to education already existed. So I was entering a community that was already part of brainstorming practices and this resource. Whereas Wikidata, even in 2018, and I was a latecomer to some extent, was and still is under construction. And I think Shani might agree, but I would like to know, maybe she disagrees, that I sort of feel that I know, or at least we know, I'm using here the we, that it will be transformative. And at this exact point in our history, in expanding this frontier, we just don't know how yet. So it's an interesting process in which we actually see parts of this meaningful education uses happening, but we still don't have a very strong theoretical and more aggregated understanding of how this will actually transform things. So we are exploring, and this is my next slides. The way that I'm going to present what I'm doing is an exploration. And we are at the moment in which we still lack a theory, which is actually interesting, an interesting moment. I'm pretty sure when people started in the mid 2000s to work with Wikipedia as an education resource, they also lacked this theory that was built after. And we are sort of in the same process in which we are seeing things happening. We just don't know where it's leading us. So we've just jumped on an interesting adventure. And again, my starting point in this exploration, at least from my end, is always trying to understand the need that Wikidata solves. And this is very important. And I'm going to present, and Shani, please interrupt me if I'm talking too much. So I'm going to present 3 needs that I've worked with, and they all connect to Wikidata. They are all education programs. They have all developed in different smaller or larger programs. And they are part of this exploration. The first one was, how can we improve efficiently and effectively content on municipal elections in Brazil on Wikipedia, which will lead me to present on what I've called an accessory use of Wikidata. So Wikidata as a tool for other Wikimedia projects. How can we reconcile data from heterogeneous databases on the killed and disappeared in the Brazilian military dictatorship, which goes back to my experience in 2014, my first experience with Wikipedia, then being resignified as we entered Wikidata, and a third project, which is about mapping monuments in São Paulo and checking that they are where the government claims they should be, which is something that happens a lot in Brazil. So the government thinks monuments are in some place, and when you read the reports or the documentation that comes from the public agencies, they give you an address and there is no monument, and then you actually have to check if the monument exists, was robbed, destroyed, or moved. And the government is unable to keep track because of several issues that relates to being a third world country. And it's not part of the priorities, knowing where our culture is. And we did this work using Wikidata. So these were the 3 needs. They were very specific. And to some extent, they could not be solved if Wikidata did not exist. So Wikidata for all of them is the solution, but it's a different type of solution for each one of them. So I'm not sure if you have questions, Shani, at this point, or should I go to showing some of the details?
No, I think this is great. Let's explore these 3, and maybe then you can add a bit about other cool stuff that I know you've been doing with Wikidata. But let's begin with these three.
Okay.
Now, and we'll see you on.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.